Hi, this is Lilia here with the Help Yourself podcast. And today, streaming in from Amsterdam, I have Niall McGuigan. Now, Niall and I met at the Bubble Festival last year when you were performing, Niall, and I was sitting listening, and you started doing Mongolian throat singing, and I was like, what the hell is that? It just went through every fibre of my being, and I was just so drawn to it. So, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
And can you, you've got some fancy dancy education going on there. Can you just explain what it is that you've done and that you do, and a little bit about the music therapy?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd done a music degree when I was in Ireland, when I was young, like kind of in my mid-20s. So when I left school, I had no interest in higher education until I worked on a building site for 4 years, and then I changed my tune, Then I went back to school. But then after the music degree, I became interested. During that time, I had an experience in a ceremony, the ayahuasca, and that kind of drew me into the topic of ethnomusicology.
Ah, yes.
Which was the study of music and culture, and how music, the bigger picture of music, the social, the anthropology and the sociology and the humanistic kind of sense of how music is innately human, and why we use it, and this was fascinating to me.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's just fascinating, music and dance. So can you tell us, I think this is the perfect time to talk about your ayahuasca experience and how that really changed your perception, didn't it, and your direction?
Yeah, because I was in a heavy metal band for most of my young years, like for 10 years. And I had that experience, and I was thinking about it today, and I was just thinking, like, what was it about that kind of initial moment? And there was a guy, right, playing a three-stringed fiddle that had been carved out of a tree in South America. He was a guy from the Czech Republic, actually. And I'm telling you, it sounded terrible, right? But it was the most beautiful thing I ever heard, because at that moment, it was more the intention behind it, right? It was the energy coming. So it's how we channel music and how we use it is actually how music is effective. It's not the music itself,
Absolutely.
And it was like, in that moment, I didn't know what I was hearing, and I didn't know what I was experiencing, but it changed how I seen things. And then it was like, I was fascinated and drawn into that whole world, and also of the world of healing, and what it meant to heal, or what was that all about. And then my music changed. So I started to kind of write songs to process what I was feeling and experiencing just for myself, instead of writing songs to be heard.
Yes, yeah, it's a completely different. My friend's an anthropologist, and he was in Africa for best part of 20 years and still goes there. But he said that, the idea of them for sitting watching one person sing is just like, what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
This is something that, we in the West see it as a form of entertainment, and that kind of dovetails nicely into the music as a therapy, and you singing, that chanting, how it's as a vibration that goes through the whole body. And that was the thing that drew me in. And interestingly enough, I just thought about this today as well. The reason I ended up in Malta was because I was in Excel in London at a hairdressing show. And the guy, anyway, long story short, I ended up at this travel show with the Fortuna Spa Resort in Malta. And on their stand, there was a girl who was doing sound healing with crystal bowls. And the same thing, it just drew me towards it. I was like, what is that? I could feel it everywhere. And that's how I ended up going to Malta, and that's how I ended up getting the salon. And it's so interesting that when I heard you singing, I was just like, whoa, the sound, the power of sound to wake something up inside you. Yeah. So can you talk about the therapeutic benefits, not just for the person who's doing it, but...
Yeah, I mean, well, from kind of after that and going on past the ethnomusicology, then I was kind of like, well, how do I apply this in a setting where it's kind of like respected, or where it's seen especially with vulnerable people? Because what I experienced after the ethnomusicology masters was I was thinking about doing a PhD, evaluating how musicians work in hospitals and how music therapies work in hospitals, and these kind of two different polarities. Now, I went in with musicians who are kind of trained in that area to go and see what was going on in hospitals, and I didn't feel like they had the training for that, because it's a very sensitive area to be in, going around with guitars. And when people are feeling like shit, maybe they don't want to sing happy songs, you know.
Absolutely.
And that's what I kind of felt when I was in the hospital with them. I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And that made me go towards music therapy, because there was more training involved in how to hold that kind of space and be sensitive to different needs, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Because at different times, even yet, there's some music you want to listen to, and some that will drive you insane a week later or an hour later, vice versa.
Yeah. So I think the healing benefit of it is that it kind of gets us beyond our intellectual mind. It gets us back into our body, especially just making sounds.
Yes.
You know, I think when lyrics are involved, it can be intellectual, and that can be very effective with, say, working with people with maybe psychosis or schizophrenia or something, because for them it's maybe difficult to feel their emotions and understand them, but they can project them into a song which is outside themselves, which is safe for them to do, and they can kind of communicate what's going on the inside through a song, you know. Which is a good way of doing it. But then with kids, you know, when I was working with kids with autism, that with severe disabilities, you're just making sounds. You know, you're just making, and that's like the basis of language. When a mother and a child is talking at the start, they're developing language just through sound, you know. And that's where it can be really healing, you know?
Yeah, and I think, you know, that whole kind of idea that cats purr and you're sending that vibration through the body. But in the West, it's kind of like people sometimes, they're like, I can't sing, I'm not a singer. Or they've been told they're tone deaf. So therefore, we kind of close that energy center down. And if you're just making noises per se, and we do this a lot, obviously you streamed into my retreat, but in the community as well last year, we did a lot just with sound, chanting, and things that everybody can do, and you don't feel judged or that you're competing or that you're on stage kind of thing. So just to actually get them to use the voice and to allow that energy to flow. Can you talk specifically about the Mongolian throat singing for me, please?
Yeah, well, it fascinated me as well. It was I got introduced to it because I kind of got into that whole world of the shamanic music and the chant, and then I came across the Humi singing, which was the guys from Hunhur too, and they're kind of a famous Mongolian group. And I was like, what is going on there? You know what I mean? You could just hear this whistle and like two sounds at the same time. You're going, what the fuck? You know, this is crazy stuff. And then when I was in London, I had the opportunity to learn an instrument and to get lessons from someone who specializes. And I found a guy in London who taught this style of singing. And I was like, all right, this is perfect. You know, this is really what I wanted to learn. So I went to this guy, and he was a fascinating guy as well. He went to Mongolia and learned orally. So without being able to speak Mongolian, he learned it by listening and watching a guy singing at him. And that is incredibly difficult, because it can be so abrasive on your throat that he had to develop a way of teaching it to other people so that they wouldn't damage their voice, because he damaged his voice learning it, you know? And so you have to be kind of careful, but you can do a normal overtone pretty straightforward with just your vocal cords. But the Humi has a different kind of a tone where you use the pharynx at the back of your throat, which is kind of constricted but also relaxed, and then you split the sound with your tongue. So say this is your tongue, and it goes, this is the ridge of your mouth, and your teeth are here. Your tongue comes down to here, and it is like in the middle of your mouth, and you chant from the back coming up and restrict here and the pharynx, and then the sound is split by your tongue. And by moving the back of your tongue up, it gives you a higher harmonic. So if I go like, I'll give you an example. So it's like this, and you go, And that when you're going up like this, that's when the harmonics are going up, you know?
Yes, yeah. Oh my God, I just love it. It's so cool. And I've just not been practicing. I mean, I have had a couple of private lessons with you, but it's just taking the time to practice like everything else. I just absolutely love the sound. So,
Yeah.
right, so you just literally are becoming your own musical instrument, really, aren't you? Like a wind instrument. You're using the lungs, the cavity in the neck and the mouth and the tongue to be like the reed, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
And so that has, and then if you've got a few people doing that together, because you did at the bubble, you had us all lying down, and everyone just absorbing that frequency. It is like it's the gong bath, isn't it? But it's the human.
It is.
It is,
And I think it's more effective when it's coming from yourself and when you're singing along, you know. The gong bats are amazing, don't get me wrong, and it's so relaxing to lie back and also feel that vibration. But when you're making the sound yourself, it's incredible.
I know.
Incredible.
And you've got the heart, haven't you? Because in that group, particularly at Bubble, we had such an awesome week. But everybody was just on this real high love vibration, sharing. It was so, so cool. Yeah, so awesome. Now, I want to talk to you as well about your job, because I know you've just started working in a prison. Is it a men's prison?
It's a mix. It's mixed. It's where I am actually. It's minimum security. So they're at the stage where they're kind of planning for re-release, maybe in a year or two's time.
Right.
So it's a mixed, and it's basically like people with psychological issues, with maybe bipolar, schizophrenia, and these type of disorders, you know. And so it's in the bracket of forensic psychiatry, and then music therapy is applied in that area. So it's a kind of a very different way of working, because the way you're working there in that system is to try and help the people in relation to maybe impulsive behaviors and maybe social communication and maybe neurological music therapy in terms of attention and focus. Because with these disorders, schizophrenia in particular, it's very difficult to kind of organize your thoughts and organize your space and how you deal with the world. So by doing very simple drum activities, like very, very simple stuff, and you get trained, you know, just in the beat. And this can help people enormously just to relax, you know, and to find a feeling, you know, because it's also difficult for them to feel, you know.
Yes, yeah, because they've been trying to stop feeling for a long, long time.
And also very heavily medicated also.
Yes,
you know?
And I think, you know, that's what we're realizing now. These very simple, repetitive movements distract you away from all the noise in the head, in the voice, and as chanting does, and you know, making even just mantras, you know, singing these mantras, it just tells the body it's okay, everything's okay. And so so you go in there with sort of, these are your kind of, that's the criteria, that's what you're trying to achieve. Is it bespoke? Is every individual got different desired outcomes?
It's totally different for every individual. So the skill of the music therapist is to kind of you would do an assessment with every client for maybe a couple of sessions, and basically why music is so good in this area is because most of these clients don't really want to do therapy. They're not interested in it, you know, and how this works is they're interested in music. It's the one thing maybe they are interested in, especially in this population, you've got a lot of guys into rap music and you know, heavy kind of aggressive music. And the guy who I'm learning from, so I'm setting up the program with another music therapist, a Dutch music therapist, and he has 10 years experience in a maximum security prison.
Wow.
Where I went to watch him working there a couple of weeks ago. And the whole thing there was he had been working with guys with, you know, narcissistic personality disorders, and they're kind of coming in and they're listening to really aggressive stuff, but you know, they're making that music, But as the time goes by, they start to reflect on what they've done, and they start to bring that into the music, and they start to write rap music that's actually more reflective and more therapeutic, because they're starting to organize actually empathy and start to feel kind of like, oh Jesus, maybe and missing their family and do whatever to start to realize what they've done, you know. And
Wow,
how,
that is incredible, isn't
yeah,
it?
and how he was showing me the difference in the music when they started up
Yeah.
until now. And now the music, there's a sensitivity in the music, and now the guys are kind of learning instruments and they're kind of softening up a bit, you know.
Yes. Wow.
It's interesting.
And I think that's the reality, is that a lot of people do not want to speak about it. What is the point? Whereas if you can get people to draw or paint or dance or drama or sing, they can express, and the body can express in a way that's palatable, particularly if your past been awful, because let's face it, people don't do awful things unless awful things have happened to them. Very, very rarely.
Yeah.
So that's super exciting. It must be so rewarding to do
It
that.
is.
Is there anything like that in the UK?
There is, yeah, and I'm sure, but I think the Dutch are really well ahead in this area, because a lot of the statistics here show that most of the people that go into these institutions, because the system is so geared towards rehabilitation, that if they feel like they're gonna maybe fall out of line again, they feel comfortable enough to go back. You know, they feel comfortable enough to ask for help again, and you know. So, but I'm not, to be honest, I don't know what the situation is in Ireland or the UK, but I know it's there. I know that. Yeah.
It just seems to me that we, we should be looking at prisons for rehabilitation rather than revenge and punishment. Although sometimes there has to be a kind of, you're getting your freedom taken away, so that's a punishment anyways, never mind anything else. So then to help people reflect and grow and in a positive way, that when they go back into society they can help others, because that's normally how it works, no matter what you're healing. When you start to feel better and you can look back, and then you can help people through that process yourself. So that's just absolutely brilliant. And so what else? And you're also been, you've just recorded another album. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I done it, I just got it out there before Christmas, and Spiritual Anarchy was kind of the follow-up from my first album, Awareness, and it was kind of a reflection of what I was going through myself, because when Awareness happened, that was kind of me, I don't know, and I kind of just snapped out of the dream through ayahuasca, and I was kind of got into these healing things and different interests, spirituality and all these kind of things. But then it came also in my personal health, and I went through my own kind of struggles for a long time, for years. And through that, that was kind of like the meltdown of all the psychological, constructs that I had built up over my life. And because I went through a very intense period of this all being shaken up, that was like spiritual anarchy. I had all these ideas just falling apart, and I was very lucky to have this support going through that I did, because it was incredibly intense. But I think after that album, the first album was written over 10 years, and it was all these different experiences. And when I tried to write Spiritual Anarchy, there was nothing coming, because I was trying to write it. Whereas the first album was just for me, I was just doing it, writing songs. I wasn't trying to write it, And then the second one was a bit of a different feel, but kind of happened that last year, or just before last year, I just said, okay, I'm gonna take off traveling. I'm gonna do a little tour and see what happens. And a friend of mine gave me a mandolin as a gift, and and I took that with me. It was actually, it was a sad story, because it was our son's, and our son had died. And it was he was a great guy, Kevin, but it inspired me, because Kevin was a rocker as well. He was a little rocker, and it reminded me of what I used to do, and that kind of was like coming back full circle to writing rock riffs and kind of this kind of heavy rock kind of vibe. but in a folk kind of style as well,
Yes,
you know.
yes.
And then I mishmash a bit of Mongolian throat singing in there. And, you
Oh,
know
I
what I
love
mean?
it. That is just my favourite tune of the moment, and my mum's. And we're just talking earlier about the video as well. Big shout out to Kevin for
Yeah,
a phenomenal video in that.
yeah.
I'll put the
Kevin
link.
Teal from Aligned Heart. Yeah, he done a fantastic job. Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
amazing. So, where can people get your new album and hear all this amazing singing?
Well, the plan is it's on my website. So if you go www.niallmcguigan.com, you can find my music on there for download. And then I plan to release it on Spotify in the next month or two anyway, to get it up
Yeah,
there.
because
That's the main
everybody's
place. I mean,
absolutely.
nobody's buying CDs these days, so the music business is a different market now, and you kind of got to adapt, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I find is things, because your laptop, suddenly it breaks down, you get another gadget, you lose your phone, you drop your phone in the sea, whatever.
Yeah.
So suddenly you're just not downloading things onto a device, or if you do, they could be very short-lived. So Spotify obviously is the place where you just know you can always go in and get your favorite tunes. So that's amazing. Right, so just before we finish, can you just talk a little bit more about ayahuasca, which is, for those who are not familiar with the ceremony chat, ayahuasca is a plant medicine, and which I tried when I was in South America a couple of years ago, and I had a nice experience, but I'd already been well into all the spiritual stuff. I'd been booted into that quite some time ago. But can you just talk through, you said you kind of woke up, that's it. Can you just talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah,
How the ceremony, how many times did you do it?
It was quite funny. Well, I probably have done it maybe 400 or 500 times, because I ended up working with a guy for years. So I ended up traveling for years doing ceremonies, playing music in the ceremonies and assisting.
Right. I didn't realise that. Cool.
Yeah. But it was at the start, the kind of wake up was I was sitting in a ceremony going through the horrors, like just literally sitting there, and my head was going blah, 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 blah. And then I suddenly just said to myself, shut the fuck up. Like it was like, and I literally just broke out laughing. I was going, is it that simple?
Yeah.
Is it that, because I just looked at my thoughts and said, shut up. And it was finished. And I was laughing for a half an hour. And I was like, wow. Now maybe it's not that simple. The mind comes back all the time, but it was, as soon as it was seen, it disappeared. Mm-hmm. I was like, what? And then the next day, I kind of went into that ceremony like as an atheist, growing up in a Catholic family, and this kind of, I know this, and this is the way it is. And I walked out going, look, I know nothing. And that's when I felt I found the magic again, because everything was really vividly alive,
Yes.
And whatever that means. I mean, it just struck off a whole journey then to South America, and then finding the Mongolian throat singing, and it kind of just expanded my vision. That's what the bigger picture was. The first song I wrote after that experience.
Yeah, fantastic. And we really hope, well, you will at some point be over to sing for us in Scotland at the Heal Scotland Festival.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Coronavirus is obviously put that on hold, pushing it forward. But so, because I've got a dream of everybody breathing, getting cold, and doing that singing together, I think it'd be super powerful. And
I tell you, he inspired me to get back in the sea. I'm in the sea every day this week.
Great.
And seeing your videos up online, I was like, do you know what? I have the sea right beside me, and I hadn't been in. I used to swim all the time in Ireland, but I hadn't been in. And I swear to God, it's great. I'm in every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a fast, free way to energize yourself.
It's unreal. Yeah.
I know, it's awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And for those, we'll put the links in for your YouTube channel, your website, and then the album name for when it comes up on Spotify. And thanks so much. Have you got your guitar there? You wouldn't like to give us a wee quick
yeah.
blast? Awesome.
What do you have any requests?
Just anything that's got throat singing in it.
Oh, hold on.
Were you
So
tuned
this one's
down?
called Altai Magtal, and it's a song about the mountains. Here we go. Snow, Iksanan, Montas, Ansenger, Altai, Andai, Hoya, Meri Ballet. Shabu Jikanaru Oyana Taksana Bolag Altai Hoya Meri Ballet. Hares Norris Sanan Montas Hansinger Altai Handai Hoya Meri Balai.
I've still got a wee bit of practicing to do. I've now realised.
You'll get there. You'll definitely get there.
That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you.
You too.
And keep up the great work that you're doing. It's amazing. And you can hopefully bring it back to our shores and share it. It'd be awesome. Let me see. Thanks a lot, Niall. Ciao, ciao.
All right.